So just before I start, this is a combination of research that's been done over the last sort of 12 months in collaboration with Angus Australia. And one of my colleagues, Tom Granleys, he's been doing quite a lot of the work associated with this project. And what we've been tasked with is trying to decide how do we breed better breeders. Now, before I really get started, I want to give a bit of a plug. Now, in Armidale, at the end of the year, we have the Association of Animal Breeding and Genetics. It's the Australian and New Zealand conference that centres around animal breeding and genetics. And there's lots of talks that are going to be given there that have utilised all of the resources that you guys have collected as part of a breed society. And so if you want to come along and have a bit of a listen to some cutting edge research, please come along to Triple ABG, look it up on the website, and come along, because it'd be great to have you there. So back to the real reason I'm here is to talk to you about breeding better breeders. Now, of course, we all know cows need to live and perform in various environments. Now, we might be in Albury where it's nice and green, but we might live in the New England desert, and we need to have cows perform in that environment as well. And so that's becoming more and more important, but it's also good to pay homage to what has happened in the past, because we've been selecting for good cattle for a long period of time. And I brought up this old slide from Peter Parnell from 2012 to show that Angus breeders have been making a lot of genetic progress and a lot of genetic gain for a long period of time. And that hasn't been wasted. That's been for a given purpose to improve animals' meat quality, yield and growth. And like Dorian said yesterday, people have done a very good job at that. And I want to commend everybody for doing such a good job. Now we can also see if we want to know how much genetic progress have we made, we can have a look back and see how many animals are being recorded for various traits. And so we see for early age traits, if we can, is there a pointer somewhere? No? Okay, so for early age traits on your left, or yeah, I guess, you can see 200 day weight. Lots of people record 200 day weight. Less people record 400 day weight. Less people record 600 day weight. And then poor old mature cows don't get measured very much at all. We scan for carcass traits as a proxy for actual carcass performance. We measure animals at a young age for birth weight and calving ease, but there's very few cow production traits that have been recorded, especially if we're wanting to try and breed our cows to produce in varied environments with different energy requirements. So we don't live in a perfect world, and perfection simply doesn't exist. Without imperfection, neither you or I would exist. Now, of course, Stephen Hawking's a lot brighter than I am, but I still like to think of a breeding program. There's no such thing that's a perfect breeding program. We all do what we can do with a given amount of funds that we can do. But then there's also other really smart guys that have a lot of information, like Gandhi. Be the change that you wish to see in the world. And of course, we can look back and see how much genetic gain we've made with our carcass and growth traits, and then we can look towards the future to try and have a better breeding program for the future. And that's exactly what I think Gandhi would want us to think. Now, some mature cow phenotypes have been recorded, like we just observed, but there's only really one, mature cow weight. And it's the one that has been recorded quite a bit in some herds. And it has been studied by great people in Animal Genetics and Breeding Unit for breed plan to have breeding values for mature cow weight. And so that exists to make selection decisions already. But we were kind of tasked with understanding other traits that have been recorded as well, because many breeders have already started to think of maternal efficiency as an important trait for the breeding objective with Angus beef cattle. And so we already have mature cow weight. We could also have mature cow body condition score, and mature cow height. I apologise for the picture there, it's a bull, but well, it's meant to be recorded on mature cows. Okay, so we can have measures of energy efficiency from proxies like cow body condition and also how tall animals are. Combine that with how heavy they are, we may be able to start to unravel how efficient a cow could be. Now, there are two reasons why we could look at these traits. The first reason is because cows use stored energy to stay alive when there's no grass. And that's one reason. Another reason is because cows use energy to get in calf. Now, primarily, our preliminary research has been looking at the first point, that cows use stored energy to stay alive. Now, in our future part of the project, we're going to link that to see whether the cows that store more energy actually use that to get in calf as well. So these results primarily relate to the first point. So what do we want to know from the data that has been collected by Angus breeders? The first thing is there genetic variation? Or is it just variation in how people manage their cows? And of course, if we want to select for individuals, we have to make sure that it's genetic variation. The differences that we see are genetic and not because of management. We want to see, are these traits correlated to each other and correlated to other traits? Because if we make selection decisions, we never make selection decisions that are independent of one trait to another. Everything is related. So we have to always remember that. So when we have a new trait, we want to see what happens to the other traits. And of course, what does this mean for production in general? Now, for the data that has been collected, some of it has to be cleaned and removed because we want to make sure that what we're predicting is genetic and not management. So for mature body condition score and mature weight, we decided on having cows that are over 850 days of age, only females, having peers in their group of greater than 10 animals, so greater than 10 contemporaries to be compared to. We took data from 2012 onwards. We only used a single measurement of mature weight, and we did it at the time of weaning. Now, I'll come back to that timing thing because that could be quite important whether we're actually trying to think of cows that utilise energy for staying alive versus cows that are utilising energy to get back in calf. So think about that timing thing for a moment. So we can also clean data for our mature cow height, and of course we still have our mature cow here. This is a cow, thanks to Tom, he fixed up the previous picture. And for height, because of the limited number of records from older individuals, we had to reduce the age to just over 2 years. We had females only, again a contemporary group, so that the animals need to be compared to their peers of 10 individuals. Animals that were born since 2012, and of course a single measurement only. And as you can see from the pictures, it's just a hip height measurement to see how tall an individual is. And what we want to see, are the taller individuals, do they carry more condition, are they heavier? Are the smaller individuals, do they carry more condition or are they heavier? So the number of records that we were left with, we have quite a lot of mature cow weight records, even after such a stringent cutting back of the individuals that we want to compare. For mature body condition score, there's still a substantial number of individuals recorded. However, for mature height, there's not quite as many that have all measurements, especially with mature body condition and mature height. There's not a great overlap of the cows being represented there. And that's important when we come to trying to estimate how correlated or how related these traits are. And so we already can see that the estimates that we'll get for the correlation between mature cow height and mature cow body condition will be quite preliminary, to say the least. So I'm a geneticist. I like to think in terms of statistics, And so I just thought I'd put up a little statistical model for everyone to see. But all it really is trying to correct for the environmental component that is in the trait measurement that you have taken on farm, and which is the genetic component. And so we set up a linear model to try and adjust for those things, so that what we have in the breeding value is actually the genetic effect, not the environmental effect. So the first question was, is this variation due to genetics? Now, of course, we actually see that a lot of the variation is due to genetics, especially for a trait like mature cow weight and mature cow height. Now, we expected that the mature cow height would actually be a little bit higher, but it just happens that a bit of measurement error creeps in when people are recording cow height. If the tape is at the top of the crush, sometimes it goes a bit on an angle, sometimes it goes down, sometimes it might go back at an angle. And that contributes to some random error and reduces the heritability, or the amount of variation that we observe. So what that teaches us is that we have to have good records to try and get the most genetic variation for these traits. And even for a trait that we expect to be highly heritable, can still be impacted by measurement error. The other trait here is that is new is mature body condition. Now, many people are researching this space, whether it's in Northern Australia with Dave Johnston's Repronomics project, or in the Trans-Tasman project around female fertility. Many people are recording body condition. Now, you guys have already gone to the effort of recording this trait, and some of the variation that we observe is genetic. Could that be a little bit higher? Most definitely. If we have a better recording strategy and a better recording protocols, we expect that this heritability could be up around that 0.2 or 0.3. Now, mature cow weight, that fits exactly where we expect for our current traits that are in breed plan. Now, the next question is, what is the genetic relationship between these traits? And we observe that heavier cows tend to have higher body condition, which are actually also taller. Now, that didn't make sense to me. I thought, hang on, how do cows that are heavier, more condition and taller? I was thinking the smaller cows would have more condition. And as we go through into the phenotypic association, we'll actually get to see a bit why that might be the case. So we see, of course, I want to point out that a standard error in the brackets, high is a bad thing. And so because we had such a low overlap between the traits, mature body condition and mature height, we didn't get a very good estimate. So I wouldn't really trust that estimate. That's what that standard error is saying, because we don't have enough records overlapping the two traits. We need more overlap. Now, what would I observe in the yard if I was having a look at the different performance measures, those phenotypes that you guys have recorded? And I thought, okay, maybe this is where we'll see the different relationship. But hang on, taller cows tend to be heavier, which also tend to have a higher body condition score. That still didn't make sense to me. I was thinking, hang on, I was expecting the smaller cow doesn't need as much energy to maintain itself, so it should be in better body condition. But the data didn't support that. And so we actually had a great meeting with the Breed Plan Consultative Committee that is part of the Breed Society, and we started to discuss that. And Sinclair Munro came up with quite a nice explanation of why this might be the case. Is we're recording all of these traits at weaning, and a lot of the smaller cows actually milk quite heavily. And so they're actually taking a lot of the body condition off their bodies by the time we get to weaning, because they've put it all into their calves. And so luckily Tom's quite a diligent guy. He decided to have a bit of a look. What is the correlation between milk and body condition? And there's this negative correlation. So cows that tend to have more milk tend to have less body condition. So if we want to say that we want to have mature weight, we want to say we want to have body condition, we want to have height, we must also take into account what energy requirements the cow has at that time. something like milk, because that's where a lot of the energy for the cow is actually going. So of course that's just a preliminary estimate that Tom did since our meeting on Tuesday, so that could change a little, but I just wanted to give it, that paints quite a nice picture, that the smaller cows are milking more, so they're actually losing body condition. Okay, so that means, hang on, we recorded these traits at weaning, but cows can change over time. And so Tom pulled out a couple of cows for us, in that one cow here has been measured 33 times. A lot of measurement. Someone's put a lot of effort into that cow. Now, has she stayed the same? Not at all. She's ranged in weight from 320 kilos to 600 kilos. And so if we take different measurements at different times, we could quite well think she's good or bad at different times. And that's illustrated a little more in that 2-cow example, where we have 2 different cows from different contemporary groups. If we chose certain times, we may think one cow is better than the other. So it's really important that we do it at a certain time, and that we might have to do it at multiple time points if we want to answer different questions. So if we want to know what is the effect at weaning, but then we want to think, okay, but at weaning, the cow's already in calf. We want to know if she gets in calf as well. We may actually have to record these traits at joining too, because the traits change. And at the moment, it's difficult to say what the actual relationship would be. Would they be the same trait? We don't know. Would they be different? We really don't know. So we need to record that information so that we can find out, is it important to record these traits at joining as well as weaning, or just at weaning like we have been? So it's good to step back and think, what does it mean for the current system? Where we saw a lot of records for 200-day weight and 400-day weight, that means because there's a high genetic correlation, genetic relationship between 400-day weight and mature cow weight, we are tending to see bigger cows that are harder to maintain. Now the data is a bit tricky because we saw that the bigger cows have higher body condition scores, but that's because we recorded at weaning. And so we want to try and record it at different times. And we're still left with the question, does it impact conception? What about the next weaning weight of the calf, the next parity of the cow? And does it impact the health of the individual? So how do we get involved to try and help solve the problem? Of course, measurement is needed, and we need measurement at 2 different time points. So we can try and do it at joining and at weaning, so we can see, is it just the milk breeding value at weaning that is impacting our body condition, or is it that cow recovering and getting in calf again at joining? So we'd really like to see that type of information, and then be able to say the cows with higher or lower body condition tend to have more calves or less calves. That's our overall aim in this project. Now, of course, this type of work doesn't happen by itself, and so the team at Angus Australia is putting together some recording protocols for all of you so that you can record good data, so that when that data comes in, I can have a look at it and we can solve this problem together. And now, we don't live just in an age where recording pedigree and recording a measurement is enough. We need to start to build reference populations for genomic technologies, as we've heard over various speeches over the last couple of days. And so if you're going to the effort of recording all of these traits, which costs a lot of time and money, it may be worthwhile thinking whether you should genotype those individuals as well, for reference to make better predictions for the future. And so if you want to think a bit more about that and you need some help to decide, of course, talk to the people at Angus or come and have a chat to me. I'm more than happy to chat about those things. Now, that's kind of where my talk about mature weight ends and mature body condition. How long do I have? 5 minutes, perfect timing, that's good. So because this is Angus through the ages and it's the 100-year anniversary, I thought I would actually have a little bit of a play and think which animals have had the most influence of the Angus breed over the last 30 odd years. And so we all have heard of certain different bulls, but I just wanted to see which ones actually have the biggest influence. Now, it might not be the bulls that had the most calves, but we can actually have a look to see which ones have been. Now, the way we estimate such things is we look back through a pedigree to see which animal at the top explains all of the genetic contributions to the current generation, so the rest of the year drop. And I can do that for 2018, 2017, 2016, 2014, all the way back to 1990. And the good thing about this type of an approach is that we can have our contributions adding up to 1. So once I correct for the best individual, the one that's given us the most contribution, I then look back down through the pedigree and see which ones can explain the remaining 90%. And that might be a son, that might be another bull. But that's all that's left. And so what often happens is for a sire to be awesome, they all often have to have sons that have sires that are used to produce bulls and sons that have grandsires that are used to produce bulls in next generations. If a bull just has lots of progeny, he may not have big impacts on future generations, and that's where the big difference exists. So hopefully you can see that a little bit, and we'll go through the video. Whoop, what happened there? We want to go back. To make sure I click on the right spot. So as we can see, we move through time. The most influential ancestors have started with PS Powerplay, who was actually the sire of Scotchcap. And Scotchcap was a very widely used bull, but you see Powerplay stays at the top because he had other sons that we used as well. And over time, we see some bulls become more and more important. New trend there gets close to the top. And then around 2002, the great comes in. 036. 036 starts with a big run, and then he has slowly become very, very, very influential to the breed. We see that other bulls like Future Direction have gone up and gone down for various reasons, and we can probably think of those reasons. And by the time we get to 2018, which is the information that I had up till, we see that new design 036 explains nearly 12% of the genetic contribution to the current generation. And the top 4 bulls explain 25% of the genetic contribution to the current generation. And so if we're starting to think about how to build reference populations, could we go into the realms of genome sequencing, we'd want to make sure that we had those bulls sequenced as well. We'd want to make sure we had the information on those bulls because they are extremely influential. What you'd also see is that a lot of the popular sires now may not have reached the influential sire list or influential ancestor list because we simply haven't got there yet. That in the future, say 2020, 2022, 2025, some of the current bulls will start to push to the top. The most notable Australian bull is their Berkeley, that B1. He started to be able to have sons and sire sons, and he's starting to become more influential in terms of Australian sires. Now, genetic contribution might sound a little bit geeky, so I thought I would try and go back and actually see who's had the most offspring. Does that actually line up, cumulative offspring, since 1990 till 2018? So I decided to build another graph because I wanted to have a bit of fun. And so we can see which sires have had the most offspring since 1990. And of course, like I expected, the Scotchcap was actually the one having lots of offspring, but Powerplay was the influential ancestor. And he had some sons, GT Maximum, start to become influential, have lots of offspring, but wow, everyone really liked 036. They even liked Future Direction more. And so we see that we had a lot of offspring from these sires that had a really large contribution. They also have many sons that are at the top of that list that have been used a lot as well. And that's where a lot of the contribution for the bulls came from, the sons that have been used. But what you will notice, there is quite a difference between the two pictures. The first picture was highly influenced by US genetics. The second picture has, of course, lots of US genetics, but there's lots and lots of good Australian bulls that have been identified and used by Angus producers. And so that's kind of good success of recording individuals, because you can identify those good sons that have been used a lot. And that's where we end. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Sam. Very revealing. Great presentation. This really shows another one of our collaborative pieces of work with the University of New England and Angus Australia, and Angus Australia really evolving into a research and development organisation in collaboration with good researchers like Sam. So great work. Before we take some questions, I just want to point something else out. In regards to the work Sam's done on the mature condition score and mature hip height, we now have some research breeding values to initially look at as well. So anyone who's interested to look at a range of size with that information, they can come and grab one of these sheets of us, either after Shane's presentation, just before morning tea, or we'll put them on the Angus Australia stand as well. So make sure you come and grab that information as an initial part of that research. Okay, what we'll do now is we'll go to questions. It looks like Erica might have a question for you, Sam.
Oh, that's good. Hopefully we've got lots of questions.
Hi, Sam. Just going back to when you were wondering why the smaller cows had the lower body condition score. I think to come in with a major generalisation to say that they had a lower body condition score because they milk better is a very dangerous generalisation. And if you look in the dairy industry, actually, it's the opposite. It's the bigger cows are having the bigger milk production. So I think what we really need to do is get back, and we have a major paradigm too, I think, that big cows are less efficient. And I think what we really need to do is go in and have a look at all of those populations. And I think the research is starting to show us that there are efficient cows in small, medium and large frame cows. And rather than saying we all need to breed small frame cows, I think we should be looking at breeding efficient animals that suit everyone's individual environments.
Most definitely. I agree with you. The thing is, with correlations between traits, it is exactly that, a generalisation. So it doesn't mean that all cows that have higher milk have lower body condition. It just means that on average they did. And the correlation is moderate, so 0.4, but it's good to remember that there's a lot of variation out there. And so that if you want to make genetic change, those things help a little bit to give us a ballpark, and that's all they are. They're a ballpark. It doesn't say that we want to go all small cows, we all want to go all big cows, we want to go all low milking or high milking cows. And so I agree with you, it is a generalisation, but there is lots of variation there as well. The other thing is that what is an important part of the future work that we do is to see which cows are the ones that are still productive. And that's what we really want to see. We want to see, are these cows that are maintaining energy requirements actually more productive? Are they having more calves? And that's really the end goal that we want to get to. And are they easier to get in calf and those type of things? We'd also like to think, are the different environments that we should be looking at? Are some people's environments different and management strategies different to others? But we need information to be able to do that. We want to see, is, say, a Walker environment different to an Albury-Holbrook sort of environment? Are management strategies in those herds different? And are they impacting energy efficiency? So thank you very much for your question. Yeah, I think I wouldn't mind having a chat to Di. She might even be able to put them online to Twitter or something like that if you want to have a bit more of a look, or if you want, I'm happy to share them. Peter Parnell, the boss, was happy for me to share them. So, of course, I would love for people to go through and have a look at Angus through the ages.
Yeah, we'll look to put them up on the website and on social media, so soon after this presentation, basically. One more question. I think it's Dick, your question, mate.
Sam, Dick Whale. Sam, I'm becoming more disillusioned with all the measurements we're taking, surely we need to have cows that are lasting in the herd. And I know that all these things have some impact on it, but surely we should be looking at longevity and the effect of genomics on that. And my understanding under the IGS system in the States, there's a small number of genes influencing positive and negative over 7 breeds they've looked at. Do we need to do all this measurement, or do we need to get down and just look at what lasts in our herds?
Okay, so thank you very much for the question, Dick. So in terms of using genomic technologies for selection of traits like this, it's a great idea because they're ideal candidates for genomic selection. So they're measured late in life, they're difficult to measure, they're often expensive to measure, and it's difficult to get good data on them. And so it is a good thing to have a genomic test for it. The tricky bit is having a good genomic test for your population. And so every genomic test is population specific. What we need to do is have good information to develop those genomic tests for the future. And that's where recording comes in. And I understand that people do a lot of recording, they spend a lot of money and time recording information. What genomics allows is to get more value from that. And that's what we want to do. We want to get that more value. And especially if we record how long the cow stays in, so those fate scores that you can all put in for when you cull a cow, that can be used for how long they stay there, so for traits like longevity. So those tools exist. It's important that people record the information in a good way, in a nice structured way. Because when we develop genomic tests, they have to be, the data that's recorded has to be of good quality, otherwise we have a bad prediction. So we want to make sure we record good data so we can make a good genomic test and make good predictive predictions of the future, not just get some random data that's a bit messy and make bad predictions. Okay, thank you very much.
Thanks, Sam. Thank you. I'm sure there'll be lots of more questions, but Sam will be around if you want to talk to him specifically about any of that. Let's put our hands together and thank Sam.
Thanks for doing it.
Need a photo?